again with our bulk. What we're looking for is some rise in the dough, and also I can still see that it's held some of its shape from the coil folds, or this is actually the stretching folds. We see some little bubbles on top, these little bubbles around the sides. So what we want to do is, I use flour to dust my bench or my counter. Some people use rice flour, and other people use some water. But I think if you're just kind of starting and learning technique, flour is the best. You don't want to get too much flour on there, just enough so things aren't going to completely and totally stick. But this is where our bench scraper is going to come in a little bit. So you want to get a little bit of flour on your hands. And what we're going to do, there's a couple ways you can do this. You can scrape this out and let it plop out onto the bench. And that's kind of how we did it in my other video. Or we can loosen this up in the bowl here and kind of pull it up as a shape. If we can. It's feeling a little sticky. Kind of doing a little turn under here so we can kind of pull it out as a shape rather than like a big blob. Okay. There we go. All right, so there's a couple schools of thought on how much you're going to handle this dough from this point forward, because you don't really want to degas it. And so what we could do is we could flip it over and we could just do some gentle folds on it. So for this dough, scoop it under and flip. Press it down. We're going to kind of carefully pull it out just a tiny bit. Clean it up. Over, it's beautiful dough. And we're going to turn it. And this is called a pre-shape. I can see big bubbles on this side. And so we're going to leave this alone. We're going to put it over here on the corner of our counter. You can either cover this or leave it open to the air or do half and half. I kind of just decide how wet I feel like my dough is. In this, I think I'm just going to leave open to the air. Remember, I use these shower caps when I'm covering it up during bulk ferment, and so very little moisture ends up evaporating. So my doughs are usually a little bit wet at this stage. But some people do take this bowl right here and they just plop it upside down on top of it. And that makes a nice little cap. So for right now, I would say, you know, you can either cover it or uncover it, but check it after about a half an hour. You don't want it to have any problems with it forming a skin or anything. And if it looks like that's happening, then go ahead and put the bowl just upside down right over the top of it. Now this is the coil fold one. Again, the beginner loaf. So with this one, I think I'm just going to go in and just kind of very carefully scoop it on out of the pan. Just to kind of show you that you can do either one of these things. It's going to lose its shape. Kind of want to use the bench scraper here to help you move it around a little bit. It's sticky, but it's not like a complete blob that's just spilling everywhere. It's kind of, I think it's holding, as I move it around and it creates a shape, it's kind of holding that shape. All right, so again, up and over. Again, side, and flip. This is really a beautiful dough. It's feeling gorgeous. Now this will sit in its little round ball pre-shape here for a half an hour usually, sometimes 20 minutes. You can see I'm just kind of coaxing it to a nice little tiny ball. And it is going to lose its shape a little bit during the pre-shape, and that's normal. It's going to spread out. But really, if we tried to just apply a whole bunch of, like if we tried to tighten it up and we tried to apply, to get some tension across the dough, it wouldn't work at this point. It needs to have a little pre-shape first. Okay, so scoop. Set it down our little pile of flour. Okay, let's do the final one. This is our more advanced loaf here. And just gonna pour this one out on the counter too. Really, we handle these doughs exactly the same from this point forward, even though they're different percentages and recipes and flours. It's good. Really, you just kind of want to handle it a little bit so you're not smashing it. Okay, so we're going to go fold it up and over. And you can use this with your hand, sort of, if you don't have a bench scraper. It really does help to have one of these. We're going to kind of go under it. So when you're pushing the bench scraper underneath the dough, you kind of want to just like do quick motions and kind of like it's hot, so you don't want to touch it for a very long time. So you kind of go up and over, and turn. And that stuck a little bit. It's okay. Want to rush it. All right, I think we are ready. We're just gonna let them sit here on the counter. And again, I'm gonna come back and check them in about 15 minutes. And if they look like they're just kind of holding their shape, not spreading out too much, not getting any kind of crust or any kind of skin on the surface, then I'm just gonna leave them open to the air. If they look like, well, I don't know, they're getting a little dry on top, you just pop your bowl right over the top, like that. Okay, all right, I'm back. So I wanted to show you that these are ready to go ahead and shape. And I'm gonna turn my camera angle down so you can see it a little bit better here. Okay, so if I get a little bit of flour on my finger and I'm gonna push into the dough, you see how it bounces back, but it doesn't completely bounce all the way back in. Go back up to the top. I'm giving it a good push in there. So it bounces back, but doesn't spring back like where you can't see the dent at all. So this is what we know is to be a properly proofed dough. So if I push my finger in and it just left a big dent without springing back at all, that would be overproofed. If it sprung back all the way to the top where you could hardly even tell that you pushed your finger in there, then that's underproofed. And somewhere in the middle is just about right. So we're just about right here. So this dough right in front of me is the one that I'm going to do as a retard shape. So I'm going to scoot it over. Put it over to the side here for a minute. And I'm going to get some rice flour. You can see that. Put my banneton. You can use all-purpose flour, or I like to use rice flour just because it has a higher scorch point in the oven, so it's not going to leave kind of that gray look on top of your loaves. And also it absorbs moisture really well without the flour, or without your dough getting kind of gummy or sticky. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside. And now what we're going to do is start building some tension in the dough. And how we're going to do that is we're going to use the surface tension from the counter from the top of the dough. We're going to slide the dough around on the counter to build that tension up underneath, and it's going to come over the top of the dough. So all I did was I picked that up and then I flipped it over. And so the nice smooth side is down, and the more shaggy side is up. So we don't want to overhandle this. We kind of want it to to keep all the bubbles in here and the fermentation that we've built up. We don't want to lose all of that. And at this point though, we're going to go ahead and shape each of our loaves. And since we're going to be doing a round bowl shape, we're going to do a round shape. There's different ways to do this, but basically what I like to do is bring this up a third and fold it over here, and flip, just like we did when we did the pre-shape. Kind of work the dough where I kind of almost start to feel like I'm getting well, first of all, I'm getting a lot more tension here on top of the dough, but underneath I'm starting to feel where the tacky part of the dough is actually on the counter. And it's a little bit, it's giving me resistance when I try to move it. Now, I'm not quite done with this. So we got a lot of tension here, but I want to build more tension. So I'm going to pop it over. Now some people would go ahead and put this straight into the banneton, but I'm going to go ahead and see if I can build some more tension without completely degassing it. And the way I do that, I learned from a baker who's in the UK. And what he does is, for round shapes, he pulls a side out and pins in. And he just moves around in a circular shape, because this is going to be a round loaf. And he pulls out and he pins in. So you can see I'm being very careful when I'm tacking the dough to itself here. Okay, then he pins it. And he's going to flip. All right. Now this already is tighter. Now this is where we're going to do kind of a drag method, where I'm going to drag the dough using we can use my pinkies here as guides. It's going to guide the dough, or we can use our bench scraper. So let's do the bench scraper first. Either method is fine, or both. So you're just going to want to kind of squeak your bench scraper along on a 45-degree angle, like this. Yeah. Go in here. Now as this gets tighter and tighter, and again, we're not pushing too hard on it, but as it gets tighter and tighter, the surface of the dough is going to become thinner and thinner, and that's okay. You want to try and hit kind of a sweet spot where you're getting it as tight as you think it can get without ripping your dough. And sometimes I rip it, and then you just gotta start over with letting it rest, and then you flip it over. But we basically want to try to avoid that. So we scrape, and then we scrape this way, basically just trying to get a round shape. Because whatever shape we're giving it now, it's going to be the shape it's going to bake out into be. So if it looks kind of oblong and weird, at this stage, that's how it's going to bake out too. Okay, now this is super, I mean, it's nice and tight, nothing's ripped out. And I want to show you just quickly how to do this with your hands, because I do this with my hands most of the time too. So you're just going to kind of hold the dough here and you're going to kind of cup under. And your pinkies, you're going to be able to feel that tension building here, first of all, and then kind of the slide underneath and how the bottom of the dough is gripping the counter. So pull here. And as I pull here, there's a lot of tension building on this side. Pull this way. Pull this way. And then I puff it up to go back so I don't run off the edge of the counter. But I think this one's really done. I don't want to fool with it too much more. And it's just about the nice round shape that I like. So this is my floured banneton. And now what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over. The nice pretty side is going to go down. It's going to go like this. So I floured banneton. I'm just going to do a little flour on top here. We're going to go under the dough, making sure to make contact with the counter. And we're going to use our stabilizing hand on top to flip it over. And then we're going to create kind of like a little baby and stick it into the banneton. Okay. Like this. Try to get it in there in the middle if you can. Now, sometimes you'll find that it splits a little bit. If you want to go back in there and pinch it up, totally fine. I do that lots of times. Sometimes I don't, but it just depends really what happens with the dough. Each loaf is different, but it's totally fine for you to pinch it. Now, if you pinch it one way, it's going to be kind of a shape. So it's kind of, then you want to kind of pinch it the other way, just to kind of keep your round shape. Now, this is a nice round shape. And this is done. So what we're going to do is put the shower cap back on. And we're going to let it sit on the counter or on the bench here for about 15 minutes. And we're going to come back to it after that time. We're just going to double check that it's proofed properly with a little finger poke test. And then it's going to go into the refrigerator for at least, like overnight, so 12 hours, but up to days, like 3 days, 4 days. I usually bake it within 3 to 4 days, but the longer it sits in the fridge, the more flavor it's going to get. It's completely fine. So I kind of like to put my covering on top and kind of pull it up on the top here so it's not going to deflate onto my dough. Let's do the other one. So again, we have our round banneton. Set that aside. And then I've got this dough here. I'm going to loosen it up, get it off the counter, and then we're going to flip it over. I'm going to kind of do the same thing. So we're going to go up and over, and I can still feel how light and airy this is, so that's good. And then here, and then flip. Now this is where you decide, do I want to keep fooling with this or I just want to put it into the banneton? And usually I try to do one more set of like pinning it. It really just depends on the loaf. Sometimes if you just do the full technique and then kind of tidy it up like this, it just feels so nice and firm and taut that you really don't need to do much to it. We could work it here, work it here, and then, maybe you don't even want to flip back over and do that pinning technique. But just kind of wanted to teach you that just in case you did. So just for kicks, we'll go ahead and do that again. Flip over, and you kind of want to work quickly. Just taking sections. over. And it's much more tough now. But still gassed in there. Definitely air bubbles and stuff. Now I'm just creating surface tension. My bench scraper is in contact with the counter. Okay, so I'm going to do the little finger technique here. So we just roll it. This is really feeling bouncy at this point. So I'm going to stop fooling with this. This is kind of where you get in trouble, at least I do, with just knowing when to stop. Okay, that's separated just a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead, pull it together, and you can see how that pulls it up again. And now I have a little oval shape, so I'm going to go back the other way. Get my circle back. Okay, cover this in shower cap. All right, now for the oblong one. And this was our more advanced loaf. This one we do a little differently. It's still a shape, but just because it's going to be oblong, it's just a little different. Okay. All right. So we kind of get it into an oval type shape here. Slightly rectangular. We are going to bring the bottom up over the top, about 3/4 of the way there, like this. Got some extra dough on my hands because that was sticky. A lot of times when you're working with these whole grains and multiple flours in your dough, that can happen. That's all right. Okay. Now what we're going to do is, since we've got our bottom folded up, almost the whole way, but should have been like 3/4 of the way. Now we're going to grab our sides and we're going to pull it out. Like that. And then we're going to pull one side over, pull this side over. And now we've kind of got this open space here at the top. And we're going to want to pin this here. Pinch it a little bit. And now we're going to pin down. Right down the center, we're going to bring in the sides like this. Kind of like buttoning a jacket. And then when you pull it up and fold it over, you want to pinch it. Without like, you just kind of want to pinch the surface of it. So like this. Okay, now we're gonna, remember we had this flap at the top, and we want to take that and we want to fold it all the way down and over. Okay, we want to pinch it down here at the bottom. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do a fold, and we're going to roll it over seam side down. So we're going to do a fold over. It's kind of sticky here, but we're going to go seam side down. And that has created a really hot retard. And then this is kind of gilding the lily here again, kind of knowing when to stop. I'm going to quit there. All right. Sprinkle over the top of rice flour. We're going to do again our quick motion here. Get dug into our banneton. And then if you wanted to do a, make sure it kind of jiggles around and it's not going to stick anywhere. And if you wanted to kind of do a quick pin, you could do another set. And then pinch just to get that sealed up. Don't fold it too much. There. Beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and get my shower caps on these two. Remember, we wanted to let these sit on the counter for about 15 minutes. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. Take off our shower cap. And I just wanted to show you that even though we had pulled it together and created our final shape with some tension, when it's sat for 15 minutes, it has had a chance to just kind of settle into the basket, but it is still properly proofed. So I wanted to show you that. So just dig your, what I did was I just got my finger in some flour. I'm going to show you here. So remember, we just want to kind of pick a spot where it doesn't look like you're going to mess up, you know, what you pinch together. You, whoop! Got a sticky one there. So you see how that's coming back, but it's not completely like disappearing. Let's try another one. Boop. Perfect. Now, put this shower cap back on, and these, all of these are ready, and they're just going to go into the refrigerator. That's called a cold retard. The fermentation will continue. Here, I'm going to turn the camera up. Okay, bye. The fermentation will continue in the refrigerator, just it's going to slow way down, and so you're not going to have a whole bunch of, you know, rise like you would with a normally commercial yeast dough, where, you know, it sits and you let it proof and it just goes whoop. But sourdough isn't going to do that as much. You're going to get probably a little bit of rise, but mostly it's just going to develop flavor. You're going to take it straight out of the refrigerator, so it is cold, and you're going to put it into a hot oven. And then that cold dough and that hot oven with the lid is going to create steam. We're going to score these up though, so I'll get the camera set up and we can do some scoring. I've been doing some of those videos. You can find them on my website. And so that was it. We did 3 loaves of bread today. But I hope that helped you guys. And so if there's any other questions you have, make sure to DM me, or you can email me through my website or catch me over on Insta. All right. You all have a great night. We'll talk to you later.